Grateful you've chosen to join us today. Tell us, which part of the world are you watching from? Big city? Small town? Country? We'd love to know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Invisible Cracks. Vincent Russo stared at the financial report on his laptop, the blue light illuminating his weathered face in the darkness of his home office. At 45, he'd built Russo Developments from nothing into one of Boston's premier real estate companies. Behind him on the wall hung framed photos from groundbreaking ceremonies. Vincent shaking hands with mayors, senators, and business partners. Success surrounded him like a fortress, yet within his own home, he felt like an unwelcome guest. The door creaked open. His wife Naomi stood in the doorway, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. "Coming to bed anytime soon?" Her voice carried that familiar edge, not concern, but irritation. "Just finishing up," Vincent replied without looking up. "Whatever. Don't wake me when you come in." The door closed with unnecessary force. 15 years of marriage had devolved into this. Polite exchanges laced with resentment. Vincent sometimes caught himself trying to remember when things had changed. Was it after he'd expanded the business to New York? Or earlier, when Naomi had abandoned her own career to support his dreams? Something she never let him forget? Their daughter Melanie had graduated high school last year and now attended UCLA, 3,000 miles away. Vincent suspected the distance was deliberate. Mel had always been her mother's daughter, mimicking Naomi's dismissive attitude toward him. During her childhood, he'd missed recitals and games while building his company. By the time he could afford to be present, she'd already decided he wasn't worth her attention. Vincent closed his laptop and pulled out the small notebook he kept hidden between law books on his shelf. Inside were observations he'd been collecting for months. Dates, times, conversations, unexplained absences. Something wasn't right in his household, and Vincent, ever the methodical businessman, had begun gathering data. His phone buzzed. A text from his oldest friend, Drew Powell. "Just saw Naomi at Caldera with some suit. Thought you should know." Vincent placed the phone down carefully. Caldera was an upscale restaurant downtown, not somewhere one accidentally ended up on a Tuesday night. He added this information to his notebook alongside other entries. February 18th, Naomi Yoga Retreat Weekend. Called Studio, no retreat scheduled. March 24th, new diamond earrings. Claims had them forever. April 2nd, password changed on personal phone. He flipped to a new page and wrote, May 10th, dinner at Caldera with unknown man. Vincent didn't slam his fist or throw things. He simply closed the notebook and returned it to its hiding place. In business, he'd learned that emotional reactions cost you leverage. Instead, he walked to the bedroom where Naomi pretended to sleep, her breathing too measured to be genuine. He opened their shared closet, where his modest section contrasted with her expansive collection. Vincent ran his fingers along the sleeve of an unfamiliar garment, a man's cashmere sweater, size large. Too big for Vincent's medium frame. Quietly, he took a single thread from the sleeve before returning it exactly as he'd found it. Tomorrow was Naomi's birthday. She'd made elaborate plans without consulting him. Vincent had something planned too, though not what she expected. 15 years of marriage had taught him patience, and his business rivals could attest. Vincent Russo's patience was terrifying when finally exhausted. Chapter 2. The Birthday Charade. The lake house gleamed against the afternoon sun, a modern architectural masterpiece of glass and steel perched on the shore of Lake Winnipesaukee. Vincent stood on the expansive deck, champagne flute in hand, watching guests arrive by boat and luxury cars. Naomi's 50th birthday celebration was in full swing, orchestrated entirely without his input. "Impressive place," remarked Preston Wells, Vincent's VP of operations. "Must have cost a fortune to rent for the weekend." "Surprisingly, I wouldn't know," Vincent replied, his tone neutral. "Naomi handled everything." Preston's eyebrows rose, but he said nothing. Vincent surveyed the gathering. 40 guests, most he barely recognized. Naomi's friends from her tennis club, her book group, her weekly charity committee that produced suspiciously few actual charitable outcomes. The private chef prepared gourmet appetizers while a bartender mixed signature cocktails. A string quartet played softly near the infinity pool. His daughter Melanie arrived fashionably late, her boyfriend in tow, a film student with carefully cultivated stubble. She air-kissed Vincent's cheek without making eye contact. "Happy birthday to Mom," she said. "Did you at least get her something decent this year?" The casual cruelty wasn't new. Vincent smiled tightly. "I think she'll remember my gift for quite some time." Melanie rolled her eyes and moved toward the bar. Vincent watched as she immediately gravitated to a tall man in his early 50s with salt and pepper hair and an expensive watch. They embraced with familiar warmth. The man, Gregory Pearson, according to Vincent's research, was supposedly Naomi's tennis instructor, though Vincent had discovered he actually managed several investment properties that competed directly with Russo Developments. Vincent took out his phone and discreetly photographed their interaction. The way Pearson's hand lingered too long on Melanie's back, the conspiratorial smiles they exchanged with Naomi when she joined them. More data for the collection. As sunset approached, Naomi clinked her glass for attention. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate with me. Life begins at 50, they say, and I intend to make this new chapter extraordinary." Her eyes deliberately avoided Vincent's. "I'm surrounded by the people who truly matter to me." The crowd applauded. Vincent did too, noting who nodded knowingly during her speech. Later, as the cake was being served, Naomi approached Vincent with a small box and card, handing them over with cameras watching. "From me and Mel," she said loudly. Vincent opened the box to find a store-bought cupcake with a single candle. The card read simply, "Maybe next year we'll find something that suits you." N.M. The guests around them shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. Vincent's face remained impassive as he slipped the card into his pocket. "Don't you have anything to say, Dad?" Melanie asked, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet deck. Vincent took out his phone, snapped a photo of the cupcake, and said, "I think this speaks for itself. Enjoy your party, Naomi." He walked inside to the master bedroom, removed a pre-packed bag from the closet, and made a phone call. 20 minutes later, a car arrived discreetly at the service entrance. Vincent left without anyone noticing, boarding a private helicopter at a nearby clearing. Only as they lifted off did he allow himself a single cold smile. His phone buzzed repeatedly with Naomi's incoming calls, but Vincent switched it to airplane mode. The real birthday surprise was just beginning. Chapter 3. The Revelation. 3 days later, Vincent sat in a private investigation office in downtown Boston, reviewing photographs, bank statements, and surveillance reports. The evidence formed a damning narrative. Naomi and Gregory Pearson had been involved for at least 2 years. More surprising was Melanie's role. She'd been actively facilitating their meetings, serving as lookout and alibi provider since before her 18th birthday. "This isn't just an affair," said Kira Levinson, the former FBI agent Vincent had hired 6 months ago. "They've been systematically liquidating assets from your joint accounts and purchasing properties through shell companies. Pearson's been using insider information about your development plans to undercut you." Vincent nodded, unsurprised. The betrayal stung less than the elaborate nature of their deception. "And my daughter's involvement?" Kira handed him another folder. "Pearson's been paying her tuition directly. There's also evidence he's known her since she was 15, long before he supposedly met Naomi at the tennis club." Vincent's expression darkened. "Show me everything." The timeline that emerged was calculated and cold. Pearson had deliberately targeted Vincent's family, using a vulnerability assessment of Russo Developments to identify Vincent as the perfect mark: wealthy, workaholic, emotionally distant from his family. He'd cultivated relationships with both Naomi and Melanie, positioning himself as the attentive alternative to Vincent's preoccupation with business. "There's more," Kira said hesitantly. "The lake house rental? It wasn't just for the birthday. The property is owned by a holding company controlled by Pearson. They've been using it for months, but the ownership is obscured through multiple layers." Vincent stared at a surveillance photo of Naomi, Pearson, and Melanie laughing together at a restaurant, dated 6 months before Naomi claimed to have met him. "They look like a family," he observed quietly. "In a way, They've been functioning as one, Kira confirmed. The birthday party was unusual only in that you were invited. Typically, they gather without you. Vincent stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city he'd helped build. His reflection showed no emotion, but his voice had gained a dangerous edge when he spoke again. What's their endgame? Based on financial movements, they're preparing for Naomi to file for divorce this summer. There's evidence they've been consulting with attorneys who specialize in high net worth separations. They've already moved approximately $12 million through various channels. Vincent turned from the window. And they think I'll just accept that? Kira hesitated. Mr. Russo, there's one more thing you should know. We found drafts of incriminating emails on Pearson's server. Fabricated correspondence that makes it appear you've engaged in unethical business practices. They're building a case to threaten you with exposure if you contest the divorce terms. Instead of anger, a cold smile spread across Vincent's face. Pearson thinks he's playing chess, but he doesn't realize what game we're actually in. He returned to the table and picked up his phone. I'll need complete surveillance on all three of them. And contact Leo at Secure Systems. I want everything electronic they own completely compromised. Mr. Russo, Kira said carefully, some of what you're suggesting falls into gray legal areas. Vincent merely looked at her. And what they're doing doesn't. Kira nodded slowly. I'll make the arrangements. What's your next move? Vincent checked his watch. Right now, I'm officially devastated by my wife's betrayal. I'm taking an extended leave of absence to process my emotions somewhere tropical and expensive. He showed her his phone. His location services placed him in the Maldives, complete with geotag photos. Meanwhile, I'll be implementing what I call the Vesuvius Protocol. Named after the volcano, Vincent's smile didn't reach his eyes. Pompeii never saw it coming either. Chapter 4, Groundwork. The abandoned warehouse in South Boston had once been a textile factory before Vincent converted it into a secure operations center. Inside, multiple screens displayed surveillance feeds, financial data, and communication intercepts. Vincent had assembled a small team, professionals who operated in the shadows of legal boundaries. Our friends are getting nervous, said Leo Vega, Vincent's head of security and oldest friend. On screen, footage showed Naomi pacing in their home office, frantically checking her phone. You've been missing for 2 weeks. She's filed a missing persons report, but she's telling Pearson not to worry. Vincent, now sporting a beard and different hairstyle, studied the feed. And Melanie? Still at UCLA, but she's been making unusual calls. Leo pulled up a transcript. She asked her trust fund manager about accessing her principal early. Moving pieces into position, Vincent mused. An alert flashed on one of the screens. Leo pulled up an email intercept. Pearson's reached out to a new attorney, specializes in inheritance claims. Vincent's eyes narrowed. They're anticipating my death. Convenient timing. There's more, Leo said grimly. We found this on Pearson's laptop. He displayed a document. A contract with a name Vincent recognized from his less reputable development projects. Riker, Vincent whispered. They're hiring Riker. Leo nodded. Scheduled to meet tomorrow. Given Riker's history, Vincent finished the thought. He's not being hired to find me. He's being hired to confirm I'm gone permanently. He straightened his jacket. Let's arrange a reunion. The following evening, Vincent watched from an unmarked van as Gregory Pearson emerged from his Beacon Hill townhouse. The surveillance team tracked him to an industrial area in Dorchester, where he entered a bar frequented by certain professionals who value discretion over legality. Vincent entered through the back, baseball cap pulled low. He took a seat in a dark corner booth, angled to observe Pearson and the man he was meeting, Calvin Riker, a former military contractor with a reputation for resolving problems permanently. Through a discreet earpiece, Vincent listened to their conversation, captured by equipment Leo had planted earlier. The situation requires finesse, Pearson was saying. We need confirmation, not just speculation. Riker's gravelly voice replied. Finding bodies in remote locations isn't easy, unless you already know where to look. The implication hung in the air. I don't know anything, Pearson insisted. But his wife needs closure. The insurance company is demanding proof before releasing funds. 50,000 for confirmation. Another 50 if recovery is necessary. Vincent had heard enough. He slipped out while Pearson and Riker finalized details. Back at the warehouse, Vincent reviewed financial transfers. They've already moved the first payment to Riker's shell company, he told Leo. Naomi signed as the authorizing party using our joint account. That's a problem, Leo observed. She's spending your money to have you eliminated. Vincent's expression hardened. No, that's evidence. We're accelerating the timeline. 3 days later, Vincent's lawyer, Catherine Diaz, met him at the warehouse. Everything's in place, she confirmed. Trusts have been restructured, holdings transferred to the new entities. Legally, you've protected about 80% of your assets. And the remaining 20, as instructed, they appear vulnerable. The bait in the trap. Catherine hesitated. Vincent, what you're planning. There are serious legal considerations. I'm aware, Vincent replied. But they crossed lines first. I'm simply responding in kind. Catherine handed him a final document. Your new identity is established. Lucas Verone now exists on paper, complete with passport, credit history, and business interests. Vincent signed the document. Lucas is just a contingency. If everything goes according to plan, Vincent Russo will rise from the dead quite dramatically. And if it doesn't, Vincent's smile was chilling. Then Lucas Verone will finish what Vincent started. Chapter 5, Dominoes in Motion. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. Boston developer's yacht found abandoned off Florida coast. Vincent watched from his secure location as the story spread across news outlets. His clothes and identification had been discovered on board, along with signs of a struggle. The Coast Guard had initiated a search, but privately admitted to reporters the chances of finding him alive were slim. At the Russo residence, Naomi performed grief convincingly. Dressed in black, eyes rimmed red, she gave a tearful statement to reporters. My husband was everything to me. I'm clinging to hope, but preparing for the worst. Melanie flew home from UCLA, her Instagram feed suddenly full of childhood photos with her father, captioned with loving memories that existed only in digital form. The public outpouring of sympathy was immediate and overwhelming. Vincent observed it all with clinical detachment, making notes in his journal. Behind the scenes, his team tracked the private reactions that told a different story. Pearson canceled his meeting with Riker, Leo reported. Instead, they met with this man. He displayed a driver's license photo. Samuel Kleinman, professional diver with a record for insurance fraud. They're looking for a body to confirm, Vincent nodded. Specifically my body. Any movement on the financial front? Substantial, confirmed Diane Wong, the forensic accountant Vincent had brought in. Naomi's already filed preliminary paperwork with your insurance company. $8 million in life insurance. She's also inquired about accessing your business holdings as your presumed widow. And the trap accounts? Diane smiled thinly. 3 attempts to transfer funds already. We've allowed small movements to appear successful while documenting everything. Vincent turned to Catherine. How long before they can legally declare me dead? Without a body? Massachusetts requires 7 years, she replied. But with the evidence of foul play they're manufacturing, they could petition for an earlier declaration, perhaps within a year. Too long for their taste, Vincent mused. They'll get impatient. As if confirming his prediction, an alert sounded. Leo pulled up a new email intercept from Pearson to Naomi. We need to move faster. Kay says the company is vulnerable now, but won't remain so. Your position as grieving widow is strongest in the immediate aftermath. Time to implement phase 2. Vincent's phone buzzed with a text from Kira, P meeting with them. Surveillance in place. They're bringing my daughter deeper into the conspiracy, Vincent observed, his voice devoid of emotion. Show me. The surveillance feed showed Pearson and Melanie meeting at a coffee shop away from campus. Their body language suggested tension. Audio's patchy, Leo warned as he enhanced the feed. Pearson's voice came through. Need you to sign these as a failsafe. If your mother's claim is contested. Melanie looked uncertain. But isn't this? I mean, technically, it's just insurance, Mel. Your father would have wanted you protected. Vincent watched his daughter sign documents without reading them. Papers that Kira later identified as falsified affidavits claiming Vincent had been mentally unstable before his disappearance. "She's committing perjury," Catherine noted gravely. "She's sealing her own fate," Vincent corrected. "Activate the next phase." 2 days later, a mysterious package arrived at Boston Police Headquarters, addressed to Detective Sofia Rivera, an investigator known for her relentless pursuit of white-collar crime. The package contained selected financial records, surveillance photos, and transcripts suggesting a conspiracy between Naomi Russo, Gregory Pearson, and hired associates to eliminate Vincent Russo for financial gain. Detective Rivera, who had previously investigated Pearson for suspected connections to organized crime, immediately opened a preliminary investigation. Surveillance was established on Naomi and Pearson, their communications monitored through official channels. Simultaneously, Vincent's banking partners received anonymous evidence of fraudulent attempts to access company assets, triggering automatic security protocols that froze certain accounts pending investigation. The dominoes had been set in motion. Now Vincent waited for the inevitable missteps that pressure would create. "They'll panic," he told his team. "When people panic, they make mistakes." The first mistake came sooner than expected. Pearson made a late-night visit to Naomi at the Russo home, unaware of the newly installed police surveillance. Their heated conversation, captured by directional microphones, included damning statements. "We need that insurance money now," Pearson insisted. "Kleinman's found nothing, but he's willing to find evidence for another $50,000. "I can't access that much with the accounts frozen," Naomi argued. "We need to wait until—" "We don't have time. The detective is asking questions about the yacht. If they look too closely—" Vincent smiled coldly as he reviewed the transcript. "Detective Rivera is earning her anonymous tip," he remarked to Leo. "Time to introduce the wild card." Chapter 6: The Ghost Returns. Calvin Riker sat alone in his Spartan apartment, cleaning his service weapon, a ritual that calmed his thoughts. His phone vibrated with an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. "Mr. Riker," said a distorted voice. "I understand you've been hired to find Vincent Russo." Riker's training kicked in. He remained silent, reaching for his backup piece. "Don't bother with the gun under your cushion," the voice continued. "This is a courtesy call, not a threat. Check your email." Riker's laptop pinged with a new message containing surveillance photos of his recent meeting with Pearson, financial records of payments, and, most disturbingly, images of Riker entering his supposedly secure apartment building. "What do you want?" Riker finally asked. "Information," the voice replied. "Pearson hired you to confirm Russo's death. What weren't you told?" "Nothing relevant." "Think carefully, Mr. Riker. You're a middleman in a conspiracy that's unraveling. When it does, everyone involved becomes expendable." Riker considered his options. Pearson asked specifically about methods to confirm death without recovery. Mentioned insurance requirements. Seemed unusually knowledgeable about forensic identification procedures. And the wife. Never met her. Pearson claimed she was too distraught. Final question. Did they inquire about your other services? Riker hesitated before answering truthfully. Pearson asked hypothetically about removing obstacles. Specifically, removing obstacles who might contest insurance claims. "Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Riker. Your payment for this conversation has been transferred to your Cayman account. I suggest using it to take an extended vacation." Immediately, the line went dead. Riker checked his offshore account, finding a deposit of $100,000. Within an hour, he was headed to the airport. Detective Sofia Rivera reviewed the surveillance transcripts with growing certainty. The case against Naomi Russo and Gregory Pearson was building, but still circumstantial. She needed something definitive to justify arrests. Her phone rang, a blocked number. "Detective Rivera," said a voice she didn't recognize. "Regarding the Russo investigation, there's a storage unit registered to Gregory Pearson at Boston Harbor Secure Storage, Unit 447. The access code is 8219. You'll find what you need." "Who is this?" Rivera demanded, but the caller had already disconnected. Following procedure, Rivera obtained an emergency warrant and led a team to the storage facility. Inside Unit 447, they discovered physical evidence connecting Pearson to Samuel Kleinman, financial documents showing planned transfers of Vincent Russo's assets, and, most damning, a handbook on falsifying maritime accident evidence. Rivera immediately ordered the detention of Naomi Russo and Gregory Pearson for questioning. Vincent watched the arrests unfold through surveillance footage. Naomi's shock appeared genuine as officers led her from the house in handcuffs. Pearson, detained at his office, maintained composure until officers mentioned the storage unit. Then his expression crumbled into panic. "They've been separated for questioning," Leo reported. "Pearson's already asked for immunity in exchange for information. And Melanie? Currently unaware. She's scheduled to fly home tomorrow for a memorial service Naomi had planned." Vincent closed his notebook. Perfect timing. Notify Catherine to proceed with the emergency injunction on all accounts and properties. And tell Kira to deliver the final package to Rivera. "Are you sure about this next part?" Leo asked. "Once it's done, it's necessary," Vincent replied firmly. "They decided our relationship meant nothing. Now, they'll learn what that truly means." The next morning, as Melanie Russo boarded her flight to Boston, news alerts lit up her phone. Boston police arrest widow in suspected murder conspiracy and business partner implicated in developer's disappearance. By the time her plane landed, her mother had been formally charged with conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and embezzlement. Gregory Pearson, seeking leniency, had provided authorities with evidence implicating both Naomi and, peripherally, Melanie herself. As she exited the jetway, 2 officers waited to escort her directly to police headquarters for questioning. The carefully constructed plan was collapsing around them, precisely as Vincent had designed it to. Chapter 7: The Vanishing Point. Melanie Russo sat in the interrogation room, her designer clothes and confident demeanor increasingly at odds with her deteriorating situation. Detective Rivera had been questioning her for 3 hours, methodically presenting evidence of her involvement in her father's financial exploitation. "These signatures," Rivera said, sliding documents across the table, "appear on transfer authorizations moving funds from your father's accounts. Forensic analysis confirms they're your handwriting." "I signed what my mother asked me to sign," Melanie insisted. "That's not a crime." "And these?" Rivera produced the affidavits Melanie had signed for Pearson. "Statements claiming your father was mentally unstable and suicidal before his disappearance, directly contradicting his physician's reports and business associates' testimony." Melanie's confidence wavered. "Greg said it was to protect Mom's interests if there were insurance questions." "Mr. Pearson has provided us with quite a different account," Rivera replied. "He claims you were fully aware of the plan to declare your father dead for financial gain." "He's lying. I didn't know anything about." Rivera interrupted by playing a recording, Melanie's own voice from a phone conversation with Pearson. "Once Dad's officially gone, we can finally move forward with everything we've planned." Melanie's face drained of color. "That's not what I meant. You're taking out of context." "Then please provide the context." As Melanie struggled to explain, Rivera's phone buzzed. She stepped outside briefly, returning with a new file. "Ms. Russo, we've just received evidence that you accessed your father's personal email accounts 3 months before his disappearance, forwarding confidential business information to Mr. Pearson." Melanie finally requested an attorney. From his command center, Vincent watched his daughter's interrogation with a face carved from stone. When she asked for a lawyer, he switched feeds to Naomi's holding cell, where his wife sat with tear-streaked makeup, whispering frantically with her defense attorney. "The DA is offering a plea deal to Pearson," Leo reported. 10 years instead of 25 if he testifies against Naomi as the primary conspirator. "And he'll take it," Vincent predicted. Pearson's always been practical. Naomi's attorney is seeking bail. Hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning. Vincent nodded. Everything proceeds as expected. "What's the media coverage?" Leo pulled up news reports. The story had exploded across national outlets. Love triangle led to murder plot, and developer's wife charged in death conspiracy dominated headlines. Vincent's reputation was being portrayed sympathetically, the hardworking business leader betrayed by those closest to him. Financial impact? Vincent asked. Diane consulted her tablet. Russo Development stock initially dropped 12% on news of her disappearance, but has rebounded 8% since the arrests. The board has appointed Preston Wells as interim CEO, as your contingency plan directed. And the special transfers? Completed, Diane confirmed. The offshore accounts are secure and untraceable. Vincent stood, stretching muscles tense from hours of observation. Then it's time for Phase 3. Catherine has the documents ready. Leo nodded. Being filed with the court as we speak. Once the judge signs off, Naomi and Melanie lose everything. Vincent finished, his voice matter of fact. The houses, cars, access to accounts. All frozen pending criminal investigation. You're leaving them with nothing, Leo observed. Even the personal items. They left me with less, Vincent replied. Prepare the jet. We're proceeding with the final phase tonight. Naomi Russo was denied bail, deemed a flight risk due to recently discovered passport applications under an alias. As she was returned to her cell, a guard delivered news that devastated her more than the judge's decision. An emergency injunction had been granted freezing all assets pending investigation, including items claimed as personal property. Simultaneously, Melanie was released on bail, but discovered her credit cards declined when she attempted to book a hotel room. Her access to both her trust fund and personal accounts had been suspended by court order. The family home was sealed as a potential crime scene. With nowhere to go and no financial resources, Melanie was forced to contact her boyfriend's parents, humiliatingly asking for temporary lodging and a loan. They agreed reluctantly, having seen the news reports. Hours later, as Melanie sat in their guest room, making desperate calls to friends who suddenly wouldn't answer, her phone received an anonymous text. Look out your window. She approached cautiously, peering through the blinds to the street below. A black SUV was parked directly opposite. Though she couldn't see the driver clearly, something about the silhouette seemed hauntingly familiar. Her phone buzzed again. You should have checked the cupcake more carefully. Some birthday gifts take time to unwrap. The message came from an unknown number, but Melanie felt a chill of recognition. She ran outside, heedless of safety, but the SUV was already pulling away. In the dim streetlight, she caught a glimpse of the driver, a face she believed she would never see again. Her father was alive. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. The Boston Federal Courthouse buzzed with activity as journalists and spectators filled the hallways. The preliminary hearing for Naomi Russo had drawn nationwide attention, a tale of greed, betrayal, and presumed murder that captivated the public imagination. Detective Rivera escorted Naomi, now dressed in standard-issue prison clothing, her designer polish faded after weeks in detention. Gregory Pearson had already accepted his plea deal, agreeing to testify against her. Melanie sat in the back row, unwelcome by either side, her once privileged life reduced to borrowed clothes and borrowed housing. As proceedings were about to begin, the courtroom doors opened. Conversation died instantly as Vincent Russo walked in, very much alive and impeccably dressed. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Naomi collapsed against her attorney, while Melanie froze in her seat, face ashen. Judge Marilyn Watkins banged her gavel repeatedly. Order. I will have order or clear this courtroom. When silence finally fell, Vincent took a seat directly behind the prosecution table. The district attorney, recovering from his own shock, requested an immediate recess to confer with the surprise witness. Judge Watkins granted 30 minutes. In a private conference room, Vincent faced Detective Rivera and District Attorney Harmon. Your timing is theatrical, Mr. Russo, Harmon observed dryly. Care to explain why you've let a murder investigation proceed when you're clearly not murdered? Vincent smiled coldly. I was never officially declared dead, counselor. I simply took an unannounced sabbatical while gathering evidence. Evidence you apparently shared anonymously rather than coming forward, Rivera noted. For my safety, Vincent replied smoothly. Given that my wife and her lover had already paid someone to confirm my death, caution seemed prudent. He placed a flash drive on the table. This contains everything: financial records, surveillance footage, recorded conversations. Enough to convict Naomi and Pearson of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, embezzlement, corporate espionage, and attempted murder. Harmon examined the drive. And your daughter's involvement? Vincent's expression hardened. Melanie made her choices. The evidence speaks for itself. What exactly do you want, Mr. Russo? Rivera asked directly. Justice, Vincent answered. Complete and uncompromising. When court reconvened, the charges were amended. Naomi now faced counts of conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted theft, rather than murder conspiracy. Pearson's plea agreement remained in place, with his testimony now focusing on the financial crimes. Vincent took the stand, his testimony devastating in its methodical detail. He described discovering the affair, documenting the financial manipulations, and eventually staging his own disappearance to expose the conspiracy. You deliberately let your wife and daughter believe you were dead, Naomi's attorney challenged during cross-examination. Couldn't you have reported your suspicions to authorities without that psychological warfare? After finding evidence, they were actively planning to have me eliminated? Vincent countered. I prioritized my survival over their peace of mind. Throughout his testimony, Vincent never once looked at Naomi or Melanie. They were simply targets, not family. The proceedings concluded with the judge ordering Naomi held without bail. As she was led away, she finally locked eyes with Vincent, mouthing words only he could see. Please help me. Vincent turned away without acknowledgement. That evening, Vincent found Melanie waiting beside his car in the courthouse parking garage. You were alive all along, she said, her voice hollow. You set all of this up. I merely created opportunities, Vincent replied. You, your mother, and Pearson made the choices that led here. They're going to charge me too, aren't they? Prosecutor says accessory to fraud. Minimum. The evidence is substantial. Tears filled Melanie's eyes. Dad, please. I know I made mistakes, but I'm your daughter. Are you? Vincent asked calmly. You've spent years treating me with contempt. You helped Pearson access my business records. You signed fraudulent documents anticipating my death. I didn't know what they were planning. Not at first. Mom said you were controlling the money unfairly, that you'd cut her off if they divorced. So you helped her steal it instead, Vincent finished. Tell me, when did you start calling him Dad behind my back? Melanie's silence was answer enough. I've instructed my attorneys not to oppose emergency access to your trust fund. Enough for legal representation, Vincent said, unlocking his car. Beyond that, you're on your own. Actions have consequences, Melanie. You can't just abandon me, she cried as he got into the vehicle. Vincent looked at her with empty eyes. You abandoned me long ago. The difference is I noticed. He drove away, leaving her alone in the darkening garage. Chapter 9. Ashes and Aftermath. 6 months later, Vincent stood in his completely renovated penthouse office. The space had been transformed. No trace remained of the life he'd shared with Naomi. New furniture, new art, new views from a different building entirely. Vincent had systematically erased all physical reminders of his former family. Leo entered, carrying the morning's paper. The headline announced, Russo conspirators sentenced. Wife gets 12 years. Business partner 8 years in fraud case. It's over, Leo said, placing the paper on Vincent's desk. Pearson's testimony sealed it. Judge gave Naomi the maximum after she still refused to take responsibility. Vincent nodded, unsurprised. Naomi had maintained throughout the trial that she'd been manipulated by Pearson, that the financial transfers had been legitimate gifts, that she'd never intended harm. The jury hadn't believed her. And Melanie? He asked, his voice neutral. 3 years, mostly suspended. 5 years probation. Community service. The DA was lenient given her cooperation. Vincent made no comment, returning his attention to the architectural plans spread across his desk. A new development project that would directly compete with properties Pearson had secretly acquired. She tried to contact you, Leo continued. Letters, calls. I'm aware. She's young, Vincent. People make mistakes. Vincent cut him off with a sharp gesture. Don't. She made deliberate choices for years. This wasn't a momentary lapse of judgment. Leo nodded, knowing better than to push further. The board meeting is at 11. They're formalizing your return as CEO. After Leo left, Vincent walked to the window overlooking Boston Harbor. His empire had not only survived but thrived in his absence. Russo Developments had expanded, absorbing several of Pearson's now liquidated holdings at bargain prices. His phone buzzed with a text. Catherine confirming the final transfers in the divorce settlement. Naomi would emerge from prison with nothing but a small court-mandated stipend. All joint assets had been legally separated, trusts dissolved, properties redistributed. Vincent had even successfully petitioned to reclaim his family surname, legally requiring Naomi to revert to her maiden name upon release. Another text arrived, this one from an unknown number. Dad, I know you blocked my regular number. Please just talk to me. I've lost everything. Mom's going to prison. I'm not asking for money, just a conversation. Please. Vincent read it twice before blocking this number too. His assistant buzzed the intercom, reminding him of an appointment with potential investors. Vincent straightened his tie and closed the architectural plans, a blueprint for a luxury residential tower to be built on land once owned by Pearson. He named it Phoenix Point, rising from ashes stronger than before. That evening, Vincent hosted a small gathering at his new home, celebrating the company's most successful quarter to date. The guests were carefully selected business associates, none who had known Naomi well or been part of the birthday party debacle. As the evening wound down, Preston Wells, now Vincent's right-hand man after proving his loyalty during the crisis, lingered behind. Remarkable turnaround, Preston observed. Most men would have been destroyed by what you went through. Vincent poured 2 glasses of scotch. Most men accept betrayal. I don't. Still, the personal cost. Preston hesitated. Family is irreplaceable. They weren't family, Vincent replied simply. They were people who share my name and resources while plotting my destruction. I've simply corrected a misclassification. Preston accepted the scotch, but seemed troubled. What about forgiveness, Vincent? For your own peace. Vincent's laugh held no humor. Forgiveness is for those who seek redemption. They sought my elimination. Very different. After Preston left, Vincent sat alone in his minimalist living room. On his phone, he scrolled through news articles about the case, about Naomi's dramatic fall from socialite to inmate, about Melanie's tearful courtroom apology he'd refused to attend. A notification appeared, another message from Melanie, this time through his assistant. I'm leaving Boston, moving to Seattle for a fresh start. I know you may never forgive me, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Not for getting caught, but for everything before. I was wrong about you. Wrong about everything. If you ever change your mind, this is where I'll be. Attached was her new contact information. Vincent stared at it for a long moment before deleting the message without response. He walked to his home office and opened a notebook, the same one where he'd first documented their betrayal. On the final page, he wrote, "Case closed." Then he closed the book and placed it in a safe behind a painting. A reminder, not of what he'd lost, but of what he'd discovered about himself. Vincent Russo would not be betrayed without consequences. Not by business rivals, not by friends, not even by blood. The world now understood exactly where he drew his lines. That knowledge was worth every painful revelation. Vincent poured another scotch and gazed out at the city lights, his reflection in the window showing a man completely self-contained. No longer husband or father, just himself, uncompromised and resolute. And that, he decided, was victory enough. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.